Hi, everybody. This is Pastor Chad. I'm here with our friend from Moldova, Slava, today. He's going to talk about the Seminary at Kishnev Bible Church and how God's using it. Hope you enjoy. Hi, and welcome to Season 4 of FBC Mission So That podcast. This is an encouraging place to hear how God is working in and around us. We know that He blesses His people so that they can bless the world around them. Why is God working in our life, church, and community? It's so that through us, the world will know that He is near. Hey, everybody. We're so glad that you joined us today on our podcast. We have a great guest from out of town. From our partnership with Kishnev Bible Church, which is in Kishnev, Moldova. Kishnev. How do you say that right? I see it written in different ways. It's spelled in different ways. How do you say the capital city of Moldova?
Right. Yeah, you're right. You can see it in different ways, but the right way to say it would be Kishnev.
Kishnev.
This is the right Romanian word for our capital.
Okay.
Kishnev. That would be a Russian version of
version of Kishnev.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, the capital city of Moldova is host to Kishnev Bible Church, and it is where there's a Bible seminary that is one of the, I think, premier biblical institutions, definitely evangelical Bible institutions in the whole country of Moldova. Our church, First Baptist, has had a partnership with them for almost 10 years now, and it's been a wonderful thing to get to see them and know them. And today, we have our friend Slava with us. Slava, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, you were telling me that it was hotter in Moldova than it is in Texas now.
Well, it was just 1 week like that.
How hot did it get in Moldova?
Well, usually it's not that hot. It's bearable, so pleasant weather. Uh-huh. But that week that was really hot, it was 117.
117. Yeah. That's hot no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Arizona, like Death Valley, it's hot everywhere. We've been getting into the upper 90s, and it feels pretty warm here. When we were with you just a few weeks ago, early June, it was rainy and chilly the whole time we were in Moldova. It was like
that was the most beautiful weather.
It was wonderful. I enjoyed every moment of it. It was a really nice respite from the Texas heat. And so we're so glad that you've gotten to join us, Slava. So let's just get to know you a little bit. Tell us about your family. You have kids, you have a wife. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I am married and we have one son. He just turned 18.
Okay.
Not long ago. And his birthday was actually at the Christian camp.
Okay.
And we went together to that Christian camp. And that was for the first time for both of us to play together in the band. So he's a drummer. And I played guitar.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah, so a friend of ours, he played bass and sang, and we had a girl who sang as well. So it was a lot of fun, and he turned 18 right there.
Oh, man, that's amazing. When we were there, we saw some of his art. He's a very gifted artist. Really neat to see how God has helped him to see the world in a unique way. And so we're so excited. What was his name?
Tim.
Timothy.
His name is Tim, and my wife is Aurica.
Well, we're so glad that you're here. Tell us a little bit. When we were in Moldova, you told me a little bit about just some of the way that you came to the U.S. I think you guys spent some time here. Was it around the Ukraine invasion of Ukraine? You guys came to the U.S.
Well,
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, 2 years ago when the war started, and we came to Texas for. It was. We didn't know for how long we would come. We even thought that maybe we would come forever, because we didn't know how the things would develop in Moldova. We were afraid of Russians to come over and invade the country, but it didn't happen, so we came back. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of fear really all around the region about what would happen if Ukraine fell quickly to the Russian invasion. My friends in the Republic of Georgia had very similar. They had, go bags ready to go in a really quick time frame if something were to happen, and if Russia were to invade Georgia and Moldova or other places.
Yeah, when the war started and we were afraid of invasion, I had everything ready to go just in case they get in. We would get out. I had my tank full every day in case we need to drive away quickly. I had clothes and food kept in my trunk in the van. I just carried it, and the water, everything was ready to go. And while we were ready to do that, we also took care of the refugees in terms that our seminary stopped working for a month. Everybody was involved with the volunteer work with the seminary. I myself drove a van going to the border with Ukraine, carrying the refugees back to Kishnev, and they stationed there for a while, and then they kept going either to Europe or other places.
So how far is it from Chisinau to Ukraine? Odessa is not far, right?
Well, Odessa would be about, I guess, 90 miles.
90 miles, so less than 100 miles from the Ukrainian border, and also, we're so thankful that didn't happen. Of course, even we're there this summer, it feels very peaceful. You see a lot of development, a lot of growth. Looks like there's a lot of resources being put into developing infrastructure in Moldova, and so there's a lot of security, and things feel very stable at this time, and it's such a beautiful country. So we're so thankful that things were able to settle down and that fear passed.
Yeah, thank you. It's a beautiful country, and so we came back 2 years ago. We stayed here in Texas for 4.5 months, and the reason why we actually left because we were afraid. And my wife, she happened to see the war already 30 years ago when we had similar situation. And the war was between Moldova and Transnistria. And also that war was caused by Russian because they wanted to keep the Transnistria region for themselves.
Sure.
So my wife, she just woke up in the morning because of the tanks going by and shooting. And that was her morning. And when the war started, all the feelings just came back.
Yeah. So, I mean, so many Americans just have no concept of understanding what it was like to live through the 1990-91 fall of communism and how that impacted that whole region and many different areas. Moldova, with the Transnistria as a part of Moldova that is occupied by Russia and maintains a military there. It's Russian speakers that live inside Moldova that live there, but it's a very interesting thing. So similar places, there's actually similar things like that in many countries. Georgia has 2 occupied areas that are governed by Russia that are still Georgian, and there's all kinds of international politics around all of it. But to think about 30 years ago, your wife seeing with her own eyes the impacts of those wars, those battles on the streets in the city, and how this new invasion brought all that back to mind and back to heart. It really was something that many people in the region identify with and remember what it was like when the communism first fell, and just the settling of who was going to be in charge of what, and how that was going to work out. Well, again, we're so thankful that God has maintained that space in Moldova. And one of the most beautiful things is that the gospel has just exploded in the country. We had Sergey on the podcast last fall, and he talked about, how many people were coming to Moldova and sharing the gospel in those early days, 1991 and beyond, and how the church started as a group of college students in basically in a dorm room, 10 or so, and that grew, and there was a pastor from San Antonio that was involved in helping shape that and get Kishnev Bible Church started, and now it's a thriving, healthy, gospel-oriented evangelical church in the middle of the city. 200 or 300 people involved, the seminary, lots and lots of ministries. Our church goes and partners with the ministries there as often as we can. And so we are so blessed by your work, and so blessed about through the way that God has worked inside you, Slava. But we want to get to know a little bit about you. So tell me, how did you come to faith? This is one of those fun stories whenever you get to talk to anyone who grew up in communist world. How did God shape and shift your heart to make you who you are? I know that there's a long story, so we're going to get the maybe abbreviated version today.
Okay, I'll try to do that. Yeah, well, when I came to faith, I was 14 years old, and it still was the Soviet Union around, before the fall of the Soviet Union. I had a sister who became a believer through her choir experience. She was choir singer with her husband, and they had somebody in their choir who actually was from a Baptist church from Kishnev, and he brought them to faith. And she shared faith with me. I was 14 years old, and for some reason I just believed her, every single word. And I wanted to go to the church. So it was a Christmas break for me from school, and I came to visit with her. So she took me to that Baptist church in Kishnev, and she said, well, they have a tradition that every time after the service they make a call for repentance, and if you are ready, you can go forward and pray the prayer of repentance. And well, I wanted to do that, but I kind of was worrying about, like, well, to stay in front of so many people, I didn't feel really comfortable, and she tried to calm me down. She said, well, usually we have several people coming forward, so you won't be alone. You will be in a group, and you just pray together as a group. Actually, the pastor will pray, you just repeat. And I thought, well, that's fine. So when the call was given, I seated on the balcony, so I went down, going down the central aisle, and trying to see who else would join me.
Where's the group? Yeah.
Where's the group? Finally, I got to that front place, and nobody joined me. I was just by myself.
Just you.
So, but anyway, the pastor asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I want to pray the prayer of repentance. So he helped me to pray. He told me the words. I prayed, and it was the most beautiful day in my life. It was in 1990, so I was 14, and but my story continued. Sometime later, I turned 15. I entered musical college. I got new friends, and little by little, I started to go astray from God. And I didn't lose my faith, but I didn't follow God anymore. So I found myself in a sinful life. And also by that time, Soviet Union collapsed, and people were frustrated. People didn't have job, money. They lost all their money. So it was really, really dark time for all of us. And young people, they lost their future. They lost everything. So many of them, they just tried to hide themselves in a drinking, Mm-hmm. So I with my buddies, we also did the same. And drinking in Moldova wasn't a problem because Moldova produces a lot of wine, and every household in the village, they have their own vineyard. They sell homemade wine, so that wasn't a problem. But the problem was that we were involved in all of that because we didn't have any hope for the future. So that continued like that for 6 years, and God never left me in those 6 years, but I was away from Him. And Satan actually wanted to take my life, and I had 6 opportunities when I could lose my life, literally be dead, but God protected me. By the end of that period, many of my friends, they went abroad to Europe to find job, to work over there, and they called me to follow them. So I decided to do that. They said, well, come on, we'll have money here and we'll have different life and the party will go on. So
the party will go on.
Yeah, so I decided to join them. So I went to Czech Republic. But before going over there, I had a person who came to me, and the person said, well, hey, I just visited the fortune teller in your behalf. And the fortune teller said that if you take this spelled bunch of poppy seeds with you, then you will be successful. But make sure you keep them in your pocket, okay? I took those bunch of poppy seeds, put in my pocket. So I'm waiting outside for the van to come to pick me up. And I was thinking about the trip I was about to take. And the voice addressed me. And it wasn't like audible voice from heaven, but the voice was speaking inside my heart. And I could tell that it wasn't just my thinking process, because my thinking process is different. I know how I think, but that was the voice that actually addressed me and asked the question. And the voice said, now look, you are about to trust this bunch of poppy seeds in your pocket. But here I am, who has protected you so far, and just in 1 second he has reminded me all those tough moments of my life when I could be dead or go to jail or, bad situations. And he said, I have protected you so far. You've got to decide. Either you trust those or you trust me. And I knew exactly who was talking to me. And I said, Lord, my God, I want you to continue to protect me and care about me. So I took those bunch of opposites, throw them away, and I went to the trip. But the thing happened that the trip didn't go the way it supposed to, B, I didn't get the job I supposed to get. I didn't get the paperwork. I didn't get the place to live. So I ended in a different place just by myself. But that was God's plan. He put me in that situation so that he would have time just one-to-one with me. And next 7 weeks, it was just ongoing, continuing conversation with God for 7 weeks. It's just him and me, and it was like ongoing prayer. And we had a lot to talk about. That's why he wanted that situation. So by the end of those 7 weeks, I had through New Testament twice, because I had a habit. Anytime I leave my town, I have my New Testament that was given to me at the day of repentance. So I read through it twice. I prayed to God, and by the end of 7 weeks, I just wanted to go back home and find a church and be part of the church. That was my decision. And even though I contacted my old friends and they wanted me to stay in Czech Republic, I didn't want to. So I had new vision, I had new way, and I wanted to find the church. So by that time, Kishnev Bible Church was established, and my another sister, she was part of the church. So when I came, she told me, well, would you like to visit the church with me? But I was 100% ready. Of course, I came back to find the church. And she took me to Kishnev Bible Church, and I liked it so much. And I saw the students of the seminary, and I thought, well, that is something special. And I wanted to study at the seminary. But the seminary, I needed to pay for the education, and also I needed a place to stay and needed money to support myself.
Sure.
So I wasn't sure how I can do that because I had no money. So I decided, well, I go again somewhere else, make money, come back in 2 years when I have money, and I'll
Go to seminary.
Go to the seminary because I'll have money to pay for that. But God had a different plan. When I planned to go somewhere for a job, I actually had 3 places to go in my plan, 3 ways. And I prayed to God about which one to choose because I couldn't go 3 at once. So I prayed, and one of those ways was closed. So one of those doors was closed. So I thought, well, that's cool. Just only 2 doors. Which one? Continued to pray. And then the second door was closed, and I gave praise to the Lord.
Now there's only one. It's clear.
There is only one. It's clear. As soon as I gave praise to the Lord for that one open door, it got shut. And I thought, what? I couldn't understand what was God doing. So I didn't go for a job, and some of my Christian friends told me, well, since you're not going anywhere for a job like you planned, why don't you help us with ministry during this summer? So, and the ministry was 5 days clubs with, it wasn't with a Kishnev Bible Church. It was with different church. It was a Baptist church that hold those Christian camps and 5 days clubs. So I did 3 weeks of 5 days clubs, and also 6 weeks of Christian camp. So basically the whole summer.
Yeah.
By the end of the summer, there was a Christian health clinics. There was a group from the States came to Kishnev Bible Church during those clinics, and my sister called me over to Kishnev to visit those clinics. And while being there, the founder of Kishnev Bible Church, Ron Helton, somehow the word passed to him that I wanted to go to the seminary, but I didn't have money. And he told me, well, you can live at the seminary as a guard, and you will make money to pay for the seminary, because sometimes we have a job to offer. You do something little, we pay you some little money, but it will cover your expenses. And I thought, well, the rest is only the food. And I think, well, God will take care of the food, I guess, if he has already taken care of these needs. So I entered Moldova Bible Seminary as a student earlier than I supposed to in my plans.
Yeah,
so God's plan was better. So I started to study at the seminary, and also I was involved in the ministry right away. I played guitar, so they needed help in a new planted church by KBC, and I played guitar and in a worship band for that new church. And my future wife, she also played in that band. She was piano player. She played piano, sang, and I did the guitar and singing. And we got married afterwards. I was second-year students when we got married. And as a second-year student, I also started to work for the Christian school. We had a Christian school that is closed now by the government again. But anyway, I worked for the Christian school as a Bible teacher. I did the worship ministry at that new planted church, and I studied at the seminary, and God was taking care of me. In 2004, while I was still a seminary student, the seminary addressed me and asked me to join them in their team to be administrator of the school. So I took that offer, and I worked for 1 year as administrator of the school while still being a student.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2000, well, my classmates kind of, looked at me with different look afterwards.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because I was kind of their classmate, and now I'm administrator of the school. Well, anyway, it was funny experience and feeling at the same time. But in 2005, when I graduated from the seminary, I joined the ministry full-time as a self-supported national missionary to Moldova. And I've been in the ministry since those days. And I praise God for His way is way better than ours, our thinking or the way we can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, again, can't think through, it's hard to imagine from 1990 to 2004, the changes that were taking place in your country. Major shifts, right? Major shifts, the downfall of the Soviet Union, the implementation and development of the Moldovan government, and everything that comes with that. So retirements for the old people, futures for the young people, everything that they were doing had to just shift and change. And in the middle of that, the Lord reveals Himself to you, and you've got this both a tumultuous walk with God in those first 10 years, and God uses you so quickly to be a part of the seminary. And now you've been serving Him for 20 plus years in ministry. Yep. That's incredible. Slava, you don't look like you've been in ministry for 20 years. Like, you barely have any gray in that beard. I've got lots of gray in my beard. And so, like, the Lord has given you such good work. And, you're talking about your drummer son. You guys have a whole band. Like, you play guitar, she plays piano, he plays the drums. Like, you guys could go on tour together.
Yeah, we need to think about that.
You see the bass player and you'll be good to go. Mm-hmm. Well, that's so exciting. So we've gotten to be there. Chris is here hanging out with us today as well. Like, we got to see the seminary. We got to go to the church just in June, and it's such an encouragement to see so much life and vitality in the church. Whether we're playing on the soccer fields with students or playing games there with all of the VBS kids, or having some conversations with our translating groups and so many other leaders in the church. And I know that the seminary is kind of a seedbed for that. You find new people, they go through a 1-year program or a 2-year program and begin to grow in their knowledge of the Lord, and then many plant churches. Tell us a little bit about that. Do you know, you've been obviously connected to the seminary for a long time. How many different countries come to Moldova to the seminary and get trained and go back to their countries? I've heard Eugene talk a little bit about that, but are there many different countries that have been involved in the seminary over the years?
Well, not that. Well, we used to have more, but not right now. So basically, we have Moldovan students at the seminary. We had some students from Middle Asia, from it's Uzbekistan. But those cases are hard with the government, so we stopped doing that. But basically, we have our local students.
Sure.
But anyway, people come from all over the country. It's not just from Kishnev itself, but from different places, from different villages.
Sure. We saw a church plant last November when we were there in Comrat, and I know that there's other church plants that are nearer to Kishnev. How many different church plants are there around the country at this point?
Planted by our church?
Sure.
Yeah, we have a church in Comrade, we have a church in Orhai, and there are many churches that are on the schedule to be planted, because there are some people who are going to do that. So, but not only that, the way I see the work of the seminary is that we have two programs, like you mentioned. We have 1 year program, we have 3 years program. So that 1 year program is a part of the long 3 years program. 1 year program, we call it gap year.
Mm-hmm.
We just came up with this idea a few years ago, and we provide the education in Russian for those people who want to get the basic biblical knowledge. We teach them Old Testament, New Testament. We teach them how to write papers. We teach them church history, Bible interpretation, apologetics, those kind of classes, so that if they don't want to keep going with the seminary and they just go to a different university, so that they would be prepared to find those ideas and thoughts that are planted by those teachers in those universities.
So they can have a biblical foundation before they start adding the rest.
This is the idea. But if they decide to continue to go, they just keep going. They take English classes that we provide. They get they know well English to be able to read, write, and take lessons in English. And then we have many visiting professors from the States, and that come over and teach, and we don't use interpretation for those, and it saves a lot of time. And also English gives them access to many resources that is available, that are available in English. So
man, that's amazing. One of the things we hope to start doing is finding and developing some leaders that can go and teach in the seminary and be a part of that process with you guys as well. And so looking forward to hearing more about that. We have a few minutes left, Slava. So when we start thinking about you and how the Lord has used you, what are some things that we could pray for you? For our listeners who are just maybe hearing your name for the first time, they've heard about Moldova a time or two. How can they pray for you and for the work there in the seminary?
Well, please pray for the way I see Moldova today and for many years. Moldova is the country that many people just leave the country, go abroad. Moldova used to have way more people. More than a half of the people have left Moldova abroad for jobs. Mm-hmm. But people got upset with that factor. But the way I see it, those people who are planning to leave Moldova, we need to teach them, instruct them, give them the Bible knowledge so that as they go, they would carry it on. Since people go anyway, let's teach them and let them carry that light and be salt in the places that God sends them to go. So the prayer need is continue to pray for our ministry to work and prepare those workers either in the field, in a professional field like in the church, or just as a lay servants wherever they go.
There's really across the missions world on a big picture, there's a whole new growing understanding of how the Lord is using migration as a way to fuel the spread of the church and the gospel. So I've been a part of some big conversations, Nigeria being one of those, the Philippines being another, Moldova, Georgia, places where it's kind of economically difficult to provide for your family, but you can go elsewhere and find like you were talking about jobs. There's all this idea. It doesn't always work the way you planned. There's a lot of migrants who go and don't find the work that they had anticipated. But at the same time, there are many who send money home, and that funds a lot of efforts back in their own countries. But the mission to train up the body of Christ so that they can be fully formed disciples wherever they go is something that's being kind of talked about all over the world today. There's some studies that talk about how many people are migrating, and it is an unbelievable number. It's the whole world is going to the whole world these days, and most of it is economically driven. There are other things, wars and other things that cause, obviously, refugees like the Ukrainians leaving Ukraine, but more often than not, most people are migrating around the world for economic opportunity and for jobs. And so we'll pray for that. When when we talk to Lisa Hilgemeyer, Lisa and Greg, they've led our church and our partnership with Moldova for many years, and they talk about kind of the social orphan, the many children that live in the country whose parents have both left the country to go work, and the children are being raised by an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, or sometimes even a neighbor or a cousin. And so one of the things that you guys do is you reach out there in the city to engage those social orphans. They technically have parents, but the parents aren't available to their children. And so they go to camp, maybe they find Jesus at the camp. They get to hear the gospel. They get to be a part of KBC, the church. If they grow and want to continue, they can go to the seminary and understand more deeper what God's doing. They can continue in ministry or look for professional work around them. And so I would tell you this: if you're listening today and you're just for the first time thinking about Moldova, and you're thinking about a seminary on the other side of the planet in this capital city called Kishnev, then I would encourage you to pray that God would continue to bring opportunity to Moldova. Pray that God would open doors so that the economic world of Moldova would grow to support its people well, and that God would continue to use his church to impact that whole culture and society. If you go with us one day, and we'll take another team there, I'm sure. If you go with us, you'll find an incredible city. You'll find a church that loves the Lord and wants to make him known among their population. And you'll find a thriving gospel lighthouse in that city. And so pray for Moldova, pray for Slava. Slava is in town right now, support raising like he has to do every so often. He's a supported missionary. If you're interested in supporting him, reach out to us. We'd love to get you connected with Slava. There's a lot of great ways to support what's happening there in Moldova. And so we really appreciate it. Anything you would say as we finish up, Slava?
Well, thank you for listening to my story, and I pray God to bless you in every way.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for those of you who are listening, for tuning in, for just taking some time. Please do stop right now and pray that God would bless Slava. There's other leaders like Evgeny. We call him Eugene. There's another guy named Sergey. And there's a whole team. So pray that God would continue to use that team to make him known there in that population. We're so thankful for you, Slava. Thanks for taking some time with us today. And for all you listeners, remember why we do this. It's because God has blessed us. Remember, he makes his face shine on us, but there's a reason. It's so that through us, he'll be made known to the world around us. So be a blessing today to those around you. Don't hoard that blessing for yourself. It is for those that God sends in your way. So be a blessing. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. God bless. We are so thankful that you joined our podcast today. We would love to hear any feedback you may have for us. Remember, Psalm 67 says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth and your salvation among all nations." Don't forget why the Lord blesses us. It's so that we can be a blessing to those around us. Until next time, God bless.